This is a presentation on Chapter 44, Gifted Education in Rural Schools by Nicholas Colangelo. To begin with, there is not one set definition of rural. American Heritage College Dictionary defines it as of the country or relating to farming and agriculture. But this is not always the case, for example, in fishing towns, logging communities, and desert regions. The Census Bureau bases its definition on the population of a community. There is also another term commonly used, non-metropolitan. Instead of defining what rural is, it lumps together everything a metropolitan community is not. The final definition may relate more to us than the other two. This is by the National Center for Education Statistics. They use a 5-point scale to differentiate communities. This map shows the country in 2013. You can see the clusters of large cities surrounded by rural areas. In 1999, every state had a rural school. The only place that did not have a rural school was Washington, D.C. I found the demographics of rural communities very interesting. The number of elderly citizens is disproportionate to the number of children and working adults. Once people retire, they often move to a small town. This is detrimental to rural schools because these retirees do not typically support the local education system. Less and less people are living in rural areas as previously in our history. This is due partly to the migration occurring. Many talented residents move away to big cities to find jobs. These professionals were invested in by their community, but now the community doesn't have anything to show for it. This loss, along with the small migration to rural areas, is causing a decline in population. According to Stern, manufacturing and service industries are the new farming in rural communities. Whatever industry a community relies on will affect its social structure, which then influences the education system. Rural communities are also made up of short-term, seasonal, and part-time jobs. This does not leave many options for careers. Higher education is not as accessible to rural students as it is to their metropolitan peers. However, rural schools have seen an increasing number of high school graduates. Some studies show that rural students are not as well prepared for college as their metropolitan peers, but this success depends on the values in their community. Some pros of rural education include a small class size, a commitment to community service, and a higher chance to participate in school activities. Mixed-age classrooms are also a benefit. They allow younger children to have role models in the classroom, older children get to be leaders, and all children have the chance to have the same teacher multiple years and really benefit from that relationship. Some cons would be the fact that rural communities are isolated from cultural centers, universities, and libraries. Students have less exposure to a variety of careers, and these schools receive little funding. Lately, rural schools have been undergoing a lot of change. Because of the differences from urban schools, they have been called backwards and insufficiently rigorous, according to Reynolds. They are moving away from mixed age groups. Many rural schools are closing as they merge into larger schools. Buses and the advent of technology are making these changes possible. With computers, tablets, and smartphones, students across the country can stay connected and they're able to access a variety of resources. With computers, tablets, and smartphones, rural students are no longer isolated. They can stay connected with urban peers and have access to a wealth of information. There has been very little research done on gifted education in rural areas specifically. Therefore, these programs receive little assistance to support their students. Some advantages for gifted education in rural schools include individualized attention. Students do not have to compete for the teacher's attention as much. They can ask more questions one-on-one, and teachers know when these students are ready to move on. There is also greater independence. Teachers know their students from working with them for multiple years. They trust these students to do challenging activities on their own. Also, since these teachers are not working on a schedule with other teachers teaching the same class, they can modify their lessons how they see fit. Some challenges include the accusation of elitism. Other parents claim gifted students hog all the resources. The move towards homogeneous classes is ignoring the needs of our brightest students. Some critics call this anti-intellectual and a destruction of talent. The small population means gifted students do not get to work with like-minded peers. They do not have other students to challenge them, and there's no need for their school to have a gifted program. There is a lack of community resources as well. Gifted students can't go to a library or museum to engage in culturally relevant materials. This is an advantage that metropolitan students have over rural students. Rural schools also have a hard time hiring teachers. Most teachers don't move to a community they have no connection to. It is especially difficult for them to find teachers with advanced training and experience in gifted education. In conclusion, the keys to a successful gifted education in a rural community is a teacher or an administrator who is passionate about serving these students and willing to dedicate their time. Usually, because it's just one teacher serving these students, there's a theme. Maybe that teacher is very math-oriented, so that program is very focused on math, or it could be literature-based. There also has to be a flexible program with standards designed specifically for talented students, and of course, exceptional students who will thrive in these programs.